This is Trump White House. This is an explanation by the White House of what is going on right now. This is Hassett, Kevin Hassett, on CNBC. He says there's I think a lot of patriotism in the data. There's patriotism in the data. My theory, as an economist, he says, Hassett is an economist, of why that is that Americans, because of President Trump's leadership, have recognized that when they buy an American product, they not only get perhaps a better product, certainly a better product most of the time, but they're also making their community stronger. And that's why he says the tariffs are not causing prices to go up, because people are just not buying foreign stuff. Now, he's an economist. He's, by the way, the number one most likely person to become the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. And he calls himself an economist. So here's the trick. Yesterday, the Trump administration was telling us how much revenue they'd gotten from tariffs. Today, they're telling us people are not buying foreign goods anymore because they're real patriots. They've been inspired by Donald Trump to buy American. But wait a minute. If they buy American, then you're not getting any revenue from tariffs. Tariffs revenue requires Americans to buy foreign goods. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, I know I know it's logic, and logic is tough for these guys. He's an economist after all. But you cannot have tariff income if people are not buying tariff goods. Don't know how that works. But this is the guy who's going to run the Federal Reserve in the future. The guy's a real, I mean, he's President Trump's chief economic advisor, and he's a real idiot. Now, it could be he's not an idiot. Here's a different interpretation of this. He's not an idiot. He's an economist. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows exactly the white tariffs are bad and everything, and that what he's saying is nonsense. But he wants the job at the Federal Reserve. He really, really, really wants to be chairman of the Federal Reserve. And therefore, he's willing to say whatever needs to be said to make Trump happy, to convince Trump that he is with him. So he lies in order to get the job. I think that's probably more right. I think that's probably what's going on. I mean, the reality is that American producers are raising prices because they have less competition, because their competitors' prices have just gone up in nominal terms, right? In total, the price of the product plus the tariff has gone up. So now American companies can increase their prices and still be competitive. So this is why prices are going up. They're going up slowly, but they are going to go up, and they will go up. This is Howard Lutnick. This guy, I actually think, is an idiot. So I don't know how he was so successful, but everything I've seen of him suggests he's not smart. This guy's not smart. He says, for 80 years, America's leaders let countries put tariffs on our products, and we did nothing. Now, under President Trump's leadership, American consumers and businesses are going to be competing on a level playing field. Reality, most developed countries have significantly lower tariff rates and fewer non-tariff barriers than the United States has. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, he might also know he's lying. I don't think he cares. He's not an economist. He could believe his own BS. I don't know. But this is complete BS. And it just keeps coming, the BS. Keeps coming. J.D. Vance today. J.D. Vance tweets. So today, the PPI came in. The PPI, the producer price index, another measure of inflation. And the PPI came in pretty low. Pretty low. And J.D. Vance writes, it's almost like the economics profession doesn't fully understand tariffs. And you go, okay, J.D. Vance is not stupid. But in this case, he's both lying and he's probably ignorant. Not stupid, but ignorant. Because the reality is this. Tariffs and taxes, since they are not retained by producers as revenue, are explicitly excluded from the PPI. So PPI does not measure prices. So PPI measures prices net of tariffs. Not the prices the consumer actually pays for the goods, but net of tariffs. So the PPI coming in low says nothing, nada, zero, zilch about tariffs. Maybe J.D. Vance, our really, really smart vice president, should go take another class in economics. Maybe. I'm just suggesting. At least before he tweets about economic data, maybe one of his advisors, I assume he has some who've got economics degrees, can update him on what the actual economic data means, what it actually is counting, what it actually presents. You notice today I'm doing economic myths of the left and the right. I'm an equally going after left and right. I know it's hard to believe. Remember those 50% tariffs on Brazil? They haven't gone into effect yet. They go into effect early August, if they go into effect at all. Anyway, Embraer Air, you probably all flown in an Embraer airplane. They are the third largest manufacturers of airplanes in the world after Boeing and Airbus. They manufacture a lot of the regional jets that fly in the United States. It turns out, I don't know if you knew this, but Embraer Air is a Brazilian company. And they've done very, very well in the United States. A lot of our largest airlines in the world in the United States, and they buy a lot of these regional jets from Embraer. Anyway, they just canceled their U.S. business plans because of the tariffs. We'll talk later, they say. They can't plan. They can't price anything. And if their jets are going to be priced at 50% more than what they were in the past, they're out of business. They're not going to sell. So they are completely strategically reorganizing in order to basically ignore the United States market and focus on other markets because they're priced out of the U.S. market. And the reality is, it's not like Boeing makes a competitor. I don't think Boeing makes a small regional jet. American Airlines won't have anybody. They can buy, maybe Airbus makes a small, I think 822, 220. I think that's an Airbus. But that's going to have 30% tariffs on it. So literally the United States is not priced out of the market for buying smaller jets or jets that are not named Boeing. Well, that'll help Boeing become more competitive and more focused on quality and focused on safety. The fact that the United States government is now protecting them from all competitors. That's a healthy move. And then, of course, Boeing is going to have a trouble selling to other countries' airlines, because there's probably going to be a tariff on them. And so it'll become much easier cheaper for European countries to buy from Airbus and to buy, they'll probably cut a deal with Brazil and they'll buy Embraers. And China's trying to develop their own, airplane company to compete with Boeing and Airbus. This is like tariffs are such a boon to China on this because it basically Chinese airlines now, it's going to be way too expensive for them to buy Boeing airplanes, which is what they typically bought. They're going to have to turn to their own domestic manufacturer and buy their stuff. And the Chinese now can offer Latin America, Africa, Europe, a competitor to Airbus, which is a Chinese plane. And basically, Boeing is isolated. So these tariffs, which you could imagine are there to help Boeing, are going to destroy Boeing's business, make them even worse than they are today. I love pointing out the sheer economic ignorance and stupidity of the leftists and the Trump administration. It's just. I don't love it because it's so sad. Here's an example, right? So the Trump administration has this big focus on, we want to build ships. We want to do shipbuilding. He came in saying this. Defense Department was saying this. Hegseth was saying this. One of the big problems in America is we've fallen behind China. We build almost no ships. They build huge numbers of ships. How do we compete with them? We can't build. It takes us forever to build ships for the Navy, but we have no commercial ships. There are no commercial ships built in the United States. And half the ships in the world, or more than half the ships in the world, are built in China. So we need to invest in the shipbuilding industry. So, there was talk in Congress and in the Defense Department, in the White House, we're gonna do shipbuilding. And indeed, the White House appointed a special office at the National Security Council focused on shipbuilding. Well, it seems that all that changed yesterday. The White House, or Trump, has closed the shipbuilding office at the National Security Council. Reuters reports that Ian Bennett, the president's special assistant for shipbuilding at the White House, has been fired. The favored candidates for provost and superintendent positions at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy have received denial notices, not hiring. At a recent USNI shipbuilding conference, it became clear major shipbuilding primes, these are the big shipbuilding companies who build for the Navy, are actively fighting plans to expand commercial shipping. They don't want commercial shipping. Partially, they don't want competitors. And partially, they realize what a futile business that would be. The Chinese, the Japanese, the South Koreans, who happen to be our allies, build great ships. America probably can't compete, certainly not on price. So the big shipbuilders who build for the Navy don't want a commercial ship industry. Sources inside the Pentagon say admirals and others in the Navy are digging in their heels on several key shipbuilding objectives. And then, this is the funny part, and the obvious part, really. Some Jones Act companies are now expressing their fear that building new ships could devalue their current fleets. How would that work? How would that work? Now, granted, this is really, really interesting, right? So here's the situation. The Jones Act basically says that in order to move anything from an American port to another American port directly, you have to use an American flagged, American crewed, an American built ship. Built ship. So if you want to move goods from Boston to Philadelphia, you have to have an American flagged, American crewed, American built ship. You want to move goods from Charlotte or Jacksonville to Puerto Rico, American built, American flagged ship. you want to take a cruise from California to Hawaii, has to be an American flag, American built, American crewed ship. By the way, there's only one such cruise ship and only 72 such ship total. None of them, by the way, or maybe one, are LNG. So you can't move gas between Pennsylvania and Massachusetts, for example. So the Jones Act is a disaster on many, many fronts. And living in Puerto Rico, you really feel it. There are only 72 ships like this. Now, given that there are only 72 ships, and you've got to move stuff between American ports, and you got to get to Alaska, and you got to get to Hawaii, and you got to get to Puerto Rico, they can charge a lot of money because there are only 72 of them. It's why Puerto Rico gets a lot of stuff, not from America, but from South America. It's cheaper. They don't have to use Jones Act ships. It's why Puerto Rico used to get gas, natural gas, from Russia and not from Texas, because there's no LNG ship to bring it from Texas that's certified by the Jones Act. So it's easier to get an LNG ship from Russia, or now from other countries in South America. But we don't, in Puerto Rico, we do not get natural gas from America. We get very little from America. And the same in Hawaii. So the guys who own the 72 ships are like, we make excess profits right now because we're the only game in town. We don't want America to build more ships. If America builds more ships, there'll be more competition. And we'll have to lower prices. And our monopoly, granted us nicely by Congress through the Jones Act, will decrease in value. That's no good. You see how economics works? It works, always. You can't escape it. You cannot escape it. You want to build more merchant ships in America? Get rid of the Jones Act. It's one step. But while you have the Jones Act, the incentive is to build no more ships. There's supposedly a Ships Act going through Congress. Well, it's stalled in committee. It doesn't look like you're going to get any real progress on shipbuilding in America. The U.S. Coast Guard is slashing orders for cutters. The challenge is going to be that the new government in South Korea, which is tilting towards being much more favorable towards China than America, given America's craziness, and the guys are leftist anyway, maybe the Koreans won't build America ships. Anyway, this one big national security project, doesn't look like it's happening. Doesn't look like it's happening. Our Navy not winning the war with the Houthis, and it sounds like Panama Canal. You remember Trump made a big deal out of Panama Canal being in Chinese hands and Chinese companies. It looks like that continues. It doesn't look like that changes.